And
Go.
welcome to another edition of the Caregivers Network podcast, the place where family and caregivers come together to learn, grow, and get supported. I'm Reggie Cunningham,
And I am Marlon Phillips.
and each week we explore personal experiences to help you navigate and deal with the challenges of caregiving with confidence.
And whether you're supporting a loved one or on the front lines, we just want you to know that we stand with you. And tonight our guest is Miss Vicki Lyons.
And Vicki comes to
Welcome.
us. She has an autistic son who's about 14. And with that, I'll let her tell you her story.
So yes, I have a 14-year-old son. It's been a tumultuous 10 years, but he has come leaps and bounds. When my son was 13, the decision was made my daughter was going to college her freshman year. The decision was made for my son to move from Memphis to Nashville so he can live with his dad. Through that year, he had grown a lot. He had gotten closer to his dad, his uncles, his cousins. It's all girls here in Memphis. So he was excited about being with the guys and doing a lot of things that we wouldn't do, staying away from the nail shops, going to the basketball games, that type of thing.
Yeah.
So he really enjoyed it. He really enjoyed being with his dad, so much so it kind of hurt my feelings because I felt like he didn't need mama anymore. So he was growing great schools and resources in Nashville until about 2 months ago, my estranged husband, committed suicide.
Oh,
Now, the
wow.
story behind the suicide is Ashton is very much so. You would see him and think that he was a bright child. He does have some behavioral issues, some major behavioral issues. But the biggest thing was that he gets angry when he hears no. Most people get a little disappointed when they hear no, but he goes to the extreme. So his dad and himself got into a physical fight. He had a massive black eye. And the day of the fight, and this is my biggest regret, the day of the fight, his dad called me and he kind of was like, Ashton's upset. He wouldn't really tell me what the situation was. All he would tell me was that he was upset. I could hear Ashton in the background screaming, I want to come back to Memphis. I want to come back to Memphis. Now, knowing my son, for him to say he wanted to come back to Memphis with the girls was a shock. No, something's
Hmm.
really wrong. So needless to say, the story I heard after the fact was it was a severe fight. They're very, very fair skinned, very, very fair skinned guys. So Ashton had a black eye, and it was a lot of remorse on his dad's part. He tried to call me. I kind of made light of it. Ashton had been with me for 10 years. I can count numerous times where there was a tussle, there was a grabbing of the steering wheel, a major car accident.
Oh,
I could
wow.
go, but so I was very passive about it. Well, you're his dad. He'll be okay. Give him a minute to calm down, step away. And I regret that to this day because the
Well, looks
rough
like
time for our family.
No kidding.
Very.
So who's your son with now?
So now he is with his paternal grandmother, which is, of
Okay.
course, his dad's mom. I didn't want that per se. She begged me. She begged me to allow him to stay. My actual next step after this happened was to get him into a facility, Open Arms. It's
Oh,
in
wow.
Nashville, it's one here. But since I've had some time to think about it, there's not much love in those places.
Hmm.
My son can be, I don't want to say normal, but he can be perfectly an outstanding 14-year-old some days. But the flip of the switch is when you get the bad behavior, the rough times.
Right.
So she has some health issues of her own, and I'm hoping that this can not only help up me, but also help her because I know it's hard, and she's just wanting to have my son close by because she lost her son.
So
Whether she wants to,
how old is she?
she is
The
65,
grandmother.
the grad 65.
So I'm just, when you get to be my age, I got to just ask the questions while I'm
No,
behind.
no,
So,
no. I totally
so
understand.
do you think that she's having an effect on him and his behavior, in your opinion, just because of the love from grandmother and grandson?
I honestly can't say because I wasn't very sure of that love prior to. I know that doesn't
Right.
sound, you normal, but her and I weren't very close.
Right.
I sent my son to Nashville because I was confident that his daddy, hands down, would take care of him. Of course, he visited
Right.
his grandmother. He talked about his grandmother. She knew me before we were separated, so we knew one another. We had a relationship with one another, understanding. But I think it's more so the routine that helps him. With
So,
autistic kids, they
because,
usually have to have a routine.
you know, a grandmother's love sometimes can transcend a little bit different. Maybe just because they're a grandmother, and maybe he knows the difference that this is not mom, this is grandma.
Right.
And I'm just wondering, maybe just the grandma, does it have an effect on him behaviorally because he doesn't want to, I don't know, disappoint? Has he or the grandmother had any physical confrontations to your knowledge?
Yes, to my knowledge, they have, but I
Oh,
mean, it
wow.
hasn't been to the extreme. To the extreme.
Okay.
I mean, Ashton, unfortunately, has fought everyone from his sister to my
I hear you.
mom, but she does say that they haven't had a fight, more of a tussle where he would try to run away and she's trying to control him type of situation. But yes, I mean, all the time,
So
but
just
I
for
can't
me,
say.
so does he recollect this behavior, or does he not know after it comes back, or does he know what he's doing at the time, or?
I honestly believe he does not know to the extreme he's
Mm,
behaving at the time. After the fact, he's very remorseful. He's very sad. He
mhm.
cries. He doesn't want to talk about it. So I do think he understands what he's
Right.
doing. However, I feel as if he can't control himself
Hmm. I
because
get
I
the
mean he
same thing.
knows right from wrong.
I get the
So I
same
mean,
Right,
thing from
right,
my
right,
daughter.
right, right.
She's remorseful after she has some type of a violent interaction with me. The yelling, the
mhm,
screaming, and she strikes out, but she's not, I don't think, intentionally hitting me, but she's so in
mhm,
proximity that her frustration causes her arms to move, and I just happen to get hit in the midst of all of that. So, one question that wanted to ask you, Vicky, and I know your story, which is one reason why I wanted to invite you onto this podcast,
Yeah.
is does Ashton's uh, father have any siblings?
yes, he has an older brother. Well, I'm sorry, excuse me, a younger brother.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Because I
Mhm.
was just wondering, was, his grandmother, you know, substituting Ashton for her son, if that was like maybe the only child, but I was just, speculating. I don't know.
No, I totally agree with you on that. And I say this because, and not to speak ill on anyone,
Right.
but Jonathan was the golden child. He was the one who went to school, who did well in school, who had a great job, and Jonathan is my estranged husband.
Right.
So the younger brother had a very different path, selling drugs, going to jail, in and out of
Hmm.
jail, near death experiences and still going to jail, so which is different. So I can't say that she does, but I do. That's what I feel in my heart. I feel like she's holding on to Ashton because
Right.
she's lost Jonathan.
Hmm. Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
yes,
That's
but I
interesting.
mean, grandmothers, we can all attest to, they have different love for their grandkids that
Oh, absolutely.
sometimes, I mean, I know growing up, I came from a good two-parent family, and my father was a disciplinarian. It's no doubt
Mhm.
that was his house until you get your own place. That's the way I
Right.
just grew up. That's the way it was in the Midwest. However, his grandmother, or my grandmother, his mother,
Mhm.
if I was having some issues, and trust me when I said if I could sneak away over to his mother's, my grandmother's house,
Right.
she would always make me feel better,
Mhm.
lick my wounds, but I have to say that you got to go back to your dad's house when we get done
That's
talking
right.
about this. Now, I'll run some interference for you, but I'm
Right.
saying all that to say that sometimes grandmother's love can transcend the circumstances or the situation to the extent that maybe your son recognized, as I said, it's his grandmother, and I want to do right by her.
Mhm.
And other than, what I'm going through with my challenge, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
I love her dearly and I don't want to disappoint her. That's just me as a lay person talking from a
No,
grandmother's
no,
love.
I can definitely understand that. I mean, I see your point of view for sure. And I'm sure she is helping with, like I said, the consistency, the routine, having that familiar person there, being
Mhm.
able to have someone who he feels like is still closer to his dad than I am, or his grandmother here, or his sister. So I can see that for sure. I can understand both sides of the fence. I mean, I guess for me, it's just difficult because Nobody can do it like mama. And that's just how I feel.
Hey, listen, I agree with that. I think what's the cliche? I carried you for 9 months, and can't nobody take that away from
That's
you.
right. I tell my kids, you are mine. Not to be so possessive, but hey, I'm going to ride
I
with
hear
you
you.
like that.
So,
Sure.
So, has he expressed any interest coming back with you, or he just seemed to be content with his grandmother?
So in the beginning, he was hard set on not coming back home, speaking in a way that I have never heard him speak.
Right.
Now we're talking about an autistic child. He's saying that, Mom, there's gangsters in Memphis and all they do is sell drugs. And I've never heard their point of view. So it made me feel like maybe someone was feeding this information to him.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then
It
to
sounds
try
like
not to be
yeah.
negative. But I mean, come on, gangsters, drugs, come on. That was never an issue before, But
I hear you.
however, I do feel like someone may have set him down, had a conversation, and told him that maybe Nashville was best for him. But I do agree with that. I do agree that Nashville is best. However,
Right.
I'm a little uncomfortable with the separation because I don't know. I have to constantly ask or get reassurance that he's going to his doctors, he's taking his meds, he's okay for the day, things of
Right.
that
Right.
nature, things that I feel like I would be on top of if he were here. So as time goes on, since this has happened, he has somewhat made some points about him wanting to come visit and him wanting to come back to Memphis for a while and things of that nature. So I know that it just takes time. I didn't want to shake
Right.
his world anymore by pressing the issue, especially since his grandmother was so adamant. She was just like, let me keep him, let him stay here with me. And she's not asking me for a thing. I mean, benefit wise, none of that. She was like, I can take care of everything,
Right.
which is a great thing, but at the same time, again, he's mine. So I want him to be safe and have his entertainment and have his knowledge
Right.
and have his skill set too. But it's one of those things where right now I think it's best just to keep him
So,
calm.
is there anybody assisting your grandmother, like her sons or anything? To Reggie's point, any of her sons have
No,
happened before?
the son is out of the home. So she does actually have custody of a cousin child. One of her first cousin has some drug issues. So she does
Right.
have custody of him. Now he's
Wow.
17, healthy kid, very smart guy, into the church, a very good role model for Ashton. So I'm very happy about that because I feel like they're close. They talk well to
Right.
one another. So that can help him a lot. So the fact that he
Yeah, they
has
might
a
be hard
boy in the
together.
house is beneficial.
Yeah. 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 That's a good conversation between the two of them. So, does he
Oh,
attend church with his cousin Ashton?
absolutely.
Does he go to church with
Absolutely.
him?
Yeah,
Yeah.
they go to
Yeah.
church
Yeah.
together and he tells me about what happens at church and all that. So he seems to enjoy it quite a bit. I think that's the biggest thing. In addition to that, he does have
Yeah.
an uncle that he's very close with. I mean, very close with, has
Right.
never reared back a hand to him at all. So they're really close and that's helping him also. He picks them
This
up, they
is
go hang out, things of that nature.
your husband's brother.
No, this uncle is his second uncle. So this was actually my husband's uncle. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
Mhm.
Vicky, tell me, once you found out about the altercation between Ashton and his dad,
Mhm.
how did you feel about that and how did you deal with that?
Oh my man, I felt so much guilt. Like guilt is not even the proper word to say because I mentioned the day
Mhm.
before we had talked and I had a little card party at my house and I kind of was just kind of brushing them off. It's going to be all right. Everything's going to be fine. But when that same uncle contacted me and told me I was in shock. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was total shock. I could not believe it. We're talking about a man who had been through so many things and walked away. People trying to take his life and he's fought and came back. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it at all. And some of the family was trying to keep hush hush what actually happened because of the altercation with Ashton as far as the physical
Right.
fight. But the uncle told me the truth. He told me exactly what happened. I asked him to what severity. He said to the point that he may not need to go to school for a week or two. So that let me
Wow.
know it was kind of bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
However, I wasn't angry with Jonathan at all because I've gotten a tussling with Ashton. I wasn't
Right.
angry.
Right.
I just was more so upset with me because I felt like I could have talked him down. I've been here before. Ashton's done this. Ashton's done that. We've been in these situations. So as far as feeling, I felt horrible. I felt horrible
Yeah.
behind that. Not
I
saying
can
I could have
understand that.
changed anything, but I definitely did.
Well, I got to
Right.
tell
Bill,
Right.
you, you and I have spoken, and I've got an autistic daughter, and I know how difficult it is to maintain yourself when they go. You told me he doesn't go to from 0 to 100. He goes
Yeah,
from
she said
zero
zero
to
to
a
a thousand.
thousand. And when
1,000,
they
that's
go to
right.
the nth degree, and you want some quiet, I can understand because I fight it all the time.
Right.
With my daughter, and Marlon has been a part of it. He's heard her, in
Mhm.
person,
Yeah.
like go off
Right.
and have one of her episodes and is inconsolable, uncontrollable. So
Right.
yeah, I can totally understand it, but
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
So
It
hard.
I
was.
just want to
Oh,
share this with you, Vicki, because out of that experience, we came up with this caregiving. But I want to give you something to take with you that Reggie and I practice 100%, and we want you to take this, okay? And that
okay.
is, don't ask God for patience. Ask God for strength. And
That's
we
right.
will always pray for strength, because if you got the strength, you can get through the patience, because God will test your patience.
I tell you, this
So
man,
we
sir.
always say, or tell everybody that
Yeah.
we know, if you want to do something for me, pray for strength in
Mhm.
me and through me, through God, and
That's
then
right.
I'll have the strength to get through and be
That's
patient. So
right.
pray for
That's right.
patience, not strength, is what we want to share with you.
Absolutely. Most definitely. I started that route and then I started to be tested quite a bit. So I understand completely
Oh
what
yeah.
completely.
Well, what we both agreed on, and I'm sure you will too, is that caregiving is no joke.
Oh no.
Okay. And when you're a caregiver, there are varying degrees, and that's how we came up with this concept.
Mhm.
So if you have not had your patience tested, you're not a caregiver.
Right.
Okay. I'm just, it's not just in dispersion, but once you get the patience test, then you can cross
Mhm.
over to being a
That's
caregiver.
right. No, I totally
Because it
agree.
takes a lot of patience, and you will learn patience as you become a better caregiver. And sometimes you just got to deal with whatever on the spot and say, Lord, give me strength to be patient with this situation. I say
That's right.
situation because it may be 5 minutes or it might be 4 or 5 hours.
That's right.
So you
Absolutely.
need strength to do it. So that we'll share that with you at no cost.
Oh, I appreciate you. No, definitely strength is a big to do. I mean, as I was mentioning, how I'm kind of getting through the process is just staying prayed up. I'm actually, trying to
Mhm.
find more me time, different things that I can do to pour into myself. I also had some health issues prior to this. So trying to make sure I'm taking care of me is important. And just getting out of the house a little bit. I mean, I was a total
Yeah.
homebody, but itemized the devil's workshop. So I'm trying to stay
Oh,
busy
no doubt about that.
and think
Yeah.
about the highlights, the good times that we can share. My son and I, his birthday is coming up, Christmas coming up. So
Hmm.
we're excited about that.
Yeah.
So just on a whimsical note, I mean, I'm sure your dating life, all that stuff changed because you have a
Yeah.
challenged child. Even if he's away, you still, and Reggie and I talk about this, you may find somebody that you like, but they got to understand that you and your son come as a package,
Absolutely. And my daughter. And my dog.
and oh.
It's a lot of us. You got to accept everything.
So we got Vicki and her clan.
Yes, the whole clique. That's right.
But no, for real, you just have to have somebody that's going to accept you and all of that too. And that can be very challenging.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're looking, just like you just want companionship or something like that, but
Oh,
it can be a little
absolutely.
challenging. You have a challenging situation. Have you experienced that?
Oh, for sure. I have had people who would stop talking to me after they experienced an episode, after they
Oh,
see
wow.
how he goes from 0 to 1,000. I've had people tell me where you need to discipline him better. You don't believe in spankings. And, anyone who's ever experienced an autistic child having an episode of spanking is just going to make you tired. They're going to look at you like, what? What are you doing?
Yeah.
So I've had that experience and it was disheartening. I've also had a
Right.
flip of the coin where I've had someone who's very, very supportive. Now that I'm freshly starting to date again after this incident, we really haven't had any experience since Ashton is not here, but he knows
Right.
exactly what I'm going through. He knows what's going on with Ashton. He knows what's going on with my daughter. I don't want to say the healthy kid and the unhealthy kid, but my daughter is
Right.
making me proud. She's a freshman, a sophomore in Fisk. So I rave about her a lot.
Oh,
I
wow.
find
Okay.
myself bragging about her, but I also have to remember that I have a son who I love dearly as well. So I talk about him, I show him pictures, we make plans to go see him. So far so good.
Right.
I think
But
ultimately
I
this is the episode.
I'm listening to you, so it seems like the one litmus test for sure whether this is the right guy is has the dog bit him or not?
Oh no, definitely not. But he almost got wrote off the list. He said he wasn't a big dog fan. I was like, oh man.
See, that was the test question
No.
I was going to ask. So he must be okay if the dog hasn't bit him. So you said if he
I don't
bites
know.
him,
We
that
haven't
he's
had the
going.
test yet. We have to see. Keep you posted.
Well, let me ask you this, Vicky, because this is something that I wrestle with, and with my son Austin, I raised him to understand at some point in time he was going to be the caregiver for his sister.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought
Mm-hmm.
about that, and have you dealt with that and spoken to your daughter about that?
I have, and she's angry. She loves her brother,
Right.
but she's extremely angry. As I mentioned, I can name Ashton was diagnosed at 4. Jules 5 years older than Ashton. So I
Hmm.
can name episode after episode after episode that we went through that was life altering for her. And one that comes to remembrance is that we were leaving the mall with Chase. We were on I-40 right there at Whidden, westbound. And it was wet out. Ashton grabbed from the back seat, grabbed the steering wheel, and we spun around
While you
4
were
lanes of
driving?
traffic while I was driving.
Oh,
We
wow.
spun around 4 lanes of traffic and hit that concrete barrier. That scared Jewel in a way. Well, it scared all of us, let's say that, because I thought it was
Hmm.
the end. I remember closing my eyes, opening my eyes, seeing cars head on like this and closing them again, just
Oh,
asking God
wow.
to help us. And since then, like I said, Ash was probably about 4, Jewel's about 9. And that just scarred her for life. And I hate to say that, but it really did. It was a long time before she
Wow.
drove. And when she did drive, she would have traumatic experience behind driving.
Oh,
She was angry
wow.
with her brother. She was very angry with him. A lot of times because of my health issues, she would have to step in and what I like to call Mama Junior. She would have to
Right.
step in and, do some things for her brother. He was very much so comfortable with her because when he first started talking, he wouldn't talk to anybody but her.
Hmm.
When I made a comment one day that Ashton doesn't talk, she said, well, he talks to me all the time,
Mm.
but that
Yeah,
was
yeah.
because he felt connected to her and she felt connected to him. But then because of so many bad episodes, she felt as if he was ruining a lot of things. And I had to constantly
Mhm.
remind her that, hey, this is your brother. We love him no matter what. We don't get rid of anybody or we don't mistreat anybody. This is our family.
Hmm.
So as far as her being a caregiver for Ashton, I don't foresee it happening, not
Mm.
because I feel like she doesn't love her brother and want good things for him, but the sky's the limit for Jewel. No grass grows under her feet. She is
Right.
in school trying to graduate early. She's ready to go to law school. She tells me all the time she wants to get rich and have a compound. At least Ashton can stay on the compound, but he's going to have somebody to take care of him,
I
unfortunately.
hear
But
you.
I'm prepared to do that until I'm gone. I mean,
I know.
I know
Yeah.
that the biggest thing with his grandmother was that she said, let me do it while I can. She has a lot of health issues herself. She's older. She's had some other issues going on with her, multiple surgeries, a lot of things. So I
Right.
know a day is going to come when she's going to say that she can't do it any longer. And
Right.
he's going to have to come home.
Right.
But I'm prepared to take the long road. I mean, that's my son. I love him. We've had some tumultuous situations, but I've never had any anxiety or any fear. At one point, I was a little fearful, but now I realize that just step away from the situation, it'll get better. So I'm
Yeah.
prepared to do that.
Well, let me
So,
ask you this: Has your daughter Jewel, has she ever taken any sensitivity training to autistic children?
Mm.
Has
yeah,
she
that's
done
what I was going
anything
to
like
ask.
that?
Yeah.
Because I think for myself, I need to do more in that realm.
Hmm.
So I'm just asking because of what you just
No.
shared.
No, absolutely. And that sounds like something that may need to be done. I didn't even realize that existed. No, she has not to answer that question. No,
I
but
was
I would
going to
be
follow on.
interested.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going
Yeah.
to ask, has she been around or done any studying or research on her own or read up about just autism to better
Right.
get an understanding of her brother's
Oh, yeah.
behavior?
Now, I'm sure she's done that. Absolutely. I'm sure because we've discussed that. So I'm sure if it's nothing but a Google search or her asking AI or something of that nature, I'm certain she
Right.
has done that. and that she at least has a better understanding that it's not necessarily his fault. It's not something he's doing intentionally. But I think the fear factor plays a huge part in it because it's so unpredictable. One
I
minute
can
everything's
understand
great,
that.
the next minute it's like boom, So I think that's the biggest part of it for her.
Well, I can
So he,
understand that. I had some similar issues with my son.
Mhm.
Growing up, he was the one responsible for taking care of his sister when we were at work.
Mhm.
And, because of that, we tried to give him some extra things that he normally would not have gotten. Like he started, playing in the band, and we made sure that he went on a band trip every year. That was kind of his reward for taking
Mhm.
care of his sister when we weren't around.
Right.
And we made sure that he understood that we were going to take care of him. So we wanted him to go away and go to school and not worry about. He was contemplating very shortly uh, to stay home to help out. I'm like, no, don't worry about that. We got this part. You need to go
Right.
away. You need to explore life, right?
Mhm.
yeah,
So we
yeah,
understood that, but at the same time, he understood at some point in time he was going to
Sure.
be responsible for her. And,
Mhm.
it's kind of like worked out well. He understands that, now it's a little bit more prevalent now that he's lost his mom. So,
Mhm.
there's no telling how
yeah,
much
yeah,
longer I'm
yeah.
going to be around. But, I've always told him what I do is to put resources available for you so you're not having to come out of your pocket to do this stuff. So, and he's all right with that, and he understood that whoever he marries, and he recently got engaged, was going to,
Mhm.
Yeah.
like you said, accept the whole package.
That's
Now, he
right.
doesn't have a dog,
Not yet.
but she has a dog, so I
Yeah.
guess.
There you go.
So,
So what's the schooling situation like right now for him down in Nashville? Is he in like a challenged child class, or is he in a regular school with regular people, or?
Yes, he does a mix of that. So he is in a special education class, and then he also has a aide that kind of goes to class with them and sits with them and things of that nature. So
Right.
one thing I can say about Nashville school system is they really, really dig deep to try to make sure the kids learn. I was sharing with Reggie once before here in Memphis. Ashton would go to school and come home with all these awards and honor roll certificates and things like that. I'm like, oh, that's great. He's doing great in school. And then I would go to the IEP meeting and it'll be all these low marks or low percentages.
Really?
And then it would be a situation where he couldn't read well. He still couldn't see his sight word or know his sight words in fifth grade. So that became problematic. They were just pushing him on,
Or pushing him
and trying
through?
to keep him encouraged by giving him honor roll certificate. But
Oh,
that's not
wow.
real life. One thing about Nashville is that they really take the time to make sure they're putting in the resources and also preparing the parents or the caregivers with the resources to help the kids at home. And I really like that. So he is in a special education class, participates in some sports. The school has what they call the Special Olympics. So they're having all the special education classes have the ability for the kids to either play tennis or soccer. I believe wrestling was one option, which I was kind of against because of his aggressive nature, but he wants to do tennis. So he's very much so active in school, and he
Right.
tends to do a little bit better in Nashville. Yeah.
So what grade is he in now?
He's in the ninth.
Ninth grade. So he's a freshman. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that wrestling might be right down his lane.
I know he's eager about it, but I just didn't want to, I don't want to teach him any more moves. He already has a mean arm. So I didn't want to teach him anything
No,
else.
you know what? See, that's why we have this call, because I would have never thought about it from that perspective. You
Oh, yeah.
know, you
Yeah.
don't
I
want
mean,
to.
he
I
may
want to
use
teach
that
him any more new moves, because I might be the person he uses them on. So
again.
thank you for sharing that. I didn't think about it like that.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you never
yeah,
know.
no, no, tennis is the right route at this point, right?
Yes, absolutely. I think tennis will be pretty cool.
For sure. So your daughter, have they ever just had confrontations on themselves where he just went after her and stuff like
Oh,
that?
absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. She's
wow.
headstrong. She's kind of sassy with the mouth. If she doesn't want to be bothered, especially when she was younger. Now that she's
Right,
older, she seems to be a little bit more patient with him and wants to be more involved, especially after her dad passed away. So she goes
right.
to visit him. She's, very much so active. But yes, they have had fights where I've had to separate the two.
Okay.
He's hitting her, she's hitting him. I'm like, stop, that type of situation. But not as of late. I mean, years has passed since the last time they've had a physical altercation. But because
Okay.
Ashton with autism doesn't have any tact, he doesn't know how to say, well, I need my space right now. Let's talk later. He'll say, leave me alone, because he doesn't have very
Interesting.
much tact. Sometimes it's a little bit of an argument there every now and then. But
I'm over
overall,
here
she loves
laughing because I've been told I don't have any tact. So
No,
I don't have
Ashton has you
autism.
beat.
Now
Oh,
that's interesting that you say that because, he just like, leave me alone. It's not that I'm being pressed condescending. That's just my direct way of saying I need some space. So leave
right.
me
There's
alone.
no gray. Right.
And that could be misinterpreted. You know what I mean?
Oh, of course, for us,
So,
but he means no harm. He just that's the way he knows to say it, and he says it that way, But
yeah,
a
yeah,
Well,
lot of
yeah.
times it can get her
Vicki, I
agitated.
want to share something with you, and I don't know if this is going to be the case for Ashton and Jewel, but when I lost my mom at a young age, my sister and my older sister and I fought all the time. We're just a year apart. And after that, we became closer, and we're still close to this day because nobody um, knew what we were going through. I don't think I knew of anybody at that point that had lost their mom. And I've shared with you that my mom was shot when I was 22 years old, and she stayed in a coma for about a month, right? Uh,
Wow.
and so my sister and I actually got closer after that because that's one thing that we shared. So hopefully, prayerfully, that Ashton and Jewel become closer, having
Mhm.
lost their dad. You
I
know,
hope so. I
yeah,
definitely hope so. I mean, not saying that there's any animosity. They love one another. I
Right,
believe that it just becomes a chore with Jewel. And I've tried to talk to her about, hey, this is your brother. This is the only brother that you have. This is your brother.
right.
But it becomes difficult for her when, some of those altercations and things. I said, well, you have to ignore that. You have to know that he doesn't respond the way we would respond. He
right,
doesn't give you
right.
sarcasm and jokes the way we be sarcastic one another and joke around. But I'm hoping that too. One thing I know in my heart of hearts is she loves her brother and he loves
Mhm.
her.
Mhm.
But I think it's the communication that they need to work on, and then the disappointment piece. I mean, that's one thing that I'm grappling with now is because Ashton tends to have the most outbursts when he's disappointed about something, when he's upset, when he hears no. Prime example of that, Jewel went to go visit him on a Monday afternoon, was going to take him to the movies, take him and his cousin to the movies. Well, she didn't realize the movie theater they were going to would stop letting minors in after a certain time. It was
Oh,
a
Mhm.
wow.
PG-13 movie, but they wouldn't allow minors in after 8. So that was telling Ashton in so many words that the world was going to end at 8 o'clock today
Oh,
because he couldn't
wow.
go see this movie. So he didn't become violent, but he belittled his sister so that it hurt her. And
Oh,
she
wow.
wanted to first attack him back. Now, I tell her as a 20-year-old with a 14-year-old, Ashton is going to say some things that you just have to overlook. He
Mhm.
doesn't
Yeah.
know to put a little sugar on it, as I like to say.
Yeah.
All he knows is that we couldn't go to the movies. You should have researched it better. Why is the movie theater closed? And you're a bad sister. And that's
Mm.
to so many words what he said to her. And she was like, well, I didn't have to come over here and take you to the movies anyway. I
Yeah.
didn't know, but like I tell her is that he doesn't realize that you just honestly didn't know. It wasn't any, evil intent. You just didn't know. You wouldn't have wasted the gas of your time if you knew, but he doesn't get that part. So
Well,
that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing.
that's one of the reasons why, it would be good for her to
Yeah.
understand autism,
Right.
because they don't react the same way most of us do.
Mhm.
They
No.
don't
Yeah.
process things the same way we
That's it,
do.
man. Yeah.
That's right.
And it's hard if you're not used to it,
Hmm.
to deal with it. And I
Right.
knew she grew up with it, but she hasn't really, I don't think, experienced it, full force like that for a little while now.
Right. That's true.
Things,
That's absolutely true. And
Yeah.
I would hate to think that that was her escape going to school. You know what I
mhm,
mean? Because I know that she's had moments where she's broken down and was like, Ashton's the reason for this, and Ashton, this is why things are this way, and kind of lashed out against Ashton. So I think we definitely need to visit that, because I think she does have some issues, when it comes down to her brother directly, as far as being with him one-on-one and being able to communicate with him better, if nothing else. And I didn't really notice that inside this conversation.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you worked with a behavior analyst with Ashton
Oh yeah, I
and
have.
your daughter? I don't know.
No, not with her, but I have me and him directly. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, I went to a lot of his therapy sessions with him, with his ABA therapy, because I wanted to know how I could better help him at home.
Mm-hmm.
It was no rhyme or reason as to why some of the triggers would take place. And I was trying to see if I could either avoid the triggers, handle myself in a way where, keep things more structured, because that's tend to be when things go well, when he has a regular routine. But no, she hasn't. She has not. No, and we probably should. We definitely should. I mean, even with us all being in different places right now, when we come together, it's still necessary to know how to react.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I had to learn to not agitate Artesia
Mhm.
with certain triggers. I
Right.
can avoid certain things
Mhm.
sometimes. I can't do it all the time, but that's just the nature of it. You have to
Yeah,
make things as pleasant as possible so that
Yeah.
you can have, some peace in
that's
your
right.
I
home.
think it's sometimes it's the approach. I haven't dealt with the autistic part, but I had a mother, a 90-year-old mother that had dementia, and as the dementia got worse, she wasn't a physical person, but she would say things not to hurt, but it was your mother, and she tells you things that you haven't heard before. You kind of take it to heart,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to understand that it's the disease and the dementia. It's not that person. And to
Yeah.
both of you guys' point, they don't process the information the same. So what I learned is you have to come up with a different way to say the same thing that everybody else might think is a 2 or 3 word instruction or comment. It may go to 14 to 15 words so that they understand, but not interpret it the wrong way. Because
Right.
my mother
That's
said that
absolutely
she
right.
would deep think about stuff that wasn't that important thinking wise to me, but their process was a little more intense. The other thing is I've learned to the extent that you can with mom, just go with the flow.
Yeah, that's true.
Just go with the flow to the extent you can. And 9 times out of 10, it always worked itself out if you just go with if anybody else is nowhere in the world, I'd go with the flow. I'd have
Right.
a different approach, if you will. But
Mm-hmm.
go with the flow and it seems like, oh, okay, and everything's smooth. You
Mm-hmm.
know, I was
No,
telling people
definitely.
that, the nurse would come over and discuss different things, whether when the nurse would come over for like PT and OT and, just getting her up and walking. And we might be in the same room with her, but my mom would be like, you guys need to include me on things that are going to involve me. Okay. Well,
Mm-hmm.
mom, she's just telling me that it'd be good for you to get up and PT and physical therapy and just stuff like that. She says, oh, okay. I said, okay. So we just she just wanted to,
Mm-hmm.
we just want to be sure that we're telling you the same thing. Okay,
Right.
but let me be in on the decision. It's your decision.
Mm-hmm.
Does settle.
Right, right. No, that makes total sense. I totally agree with you with the go with the flow thing. Because sometimes it's easy just to say, go ahead, than it is to fight 2 hours
Yeah,
about it later over
yeah.
something minor. So
No,
I
I
agree
mean,
with
what I've noted from your conversation tonight is that, you know, with your son, if it were me to this extent, let's try to get don't know out of the conversation and say it in a different way.
you. Mm-hmm.
Give them proof. I've learned to let them think that they're making a decision
Right.
to the extent that you can.
Yeah,
Okay. I
yeah,
know
absolutely.
sometimes it may be not plausible just because of the way that they're feeling in their mental state, but to the extent you
Right.
can, okay, listen, no problem. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
let's make it
yeah,
work
I
and keep
agree.
going. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah,
it's a touchy subject for me when it comes to that, because I don't want to pacify him,
yeah.
because as a 14-year-old boy and about to be 15 soon, and whether he's in Memphis or Nashville, there's some goons everywhere. Let's just say that shenanigans happen everywhere, right? So I don't want him to keep this tough guy type of image And then even though it's not necessarily to him a tough guy image, I do want him to still understand actions have consequences and right from
Yes.
wrong and things
Yes.
like that. Because I feel like when you pacify him, give him whatever he asks for, and come to find out that's kind of what his dad was doing, what his grandmother may do. The first
Wow.
time he hears no, the world is going to end. And
Mm-hmm.
that is not a way to cure the problem. If you know he doesn't like hearing no,
Right.
and there's an obstacle that you have to go over, a hurdle you have to pass when he does hear no, it's not good to constantly give him what he wants all the time. And that's what I've been noticing. They just kind of give him whatever he asks for. You know, he has multitude of gaming systems, every clothes that you could think about, you know,
Oh,
and that's
wow.
great to spoil him. What child doesn't
Right.
want to be spoiled? But I feel like, well, Ashley, if you behave when we go to the mall, then I'll buy you whatever you want. If you behave when you go to the doctor's office, I'll get that game you want. I mean, it's a lot of that going
Mm-hmm.
on. And mama
Oh,
can't
wow.
afford to do that. And I'm not going to do that. That's not how I was raised.
No, I
However,
hear you.
I am trying to work the approach and get him to understand that maybe not now, maybe for Christmas, maybe for your birthday, maybe for, you know, give me good grades. I reward great behavior. That's always been
Yeah,
what I
yeah,
told my
yeah.
kids growing up.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
And
reward
that's
of good
kind of the
behavior.
approach I'm going with it,
yeah,
because I can see that
he
leading to a bigger problem later.
he still lives in the real world, and no one gets everything they want.
That's
Nobody.
right.
That's right.
Nobody.
You
You know,
know,
good
and
Nobody.
good
it's hard
behavior will be rewarded, but bad behavior will be consequences
dealt with. Dealt with.
Exactly.
or dealt
And,
with. Yeah.
and I do the
Yeah.
same thing, with Artesia. I find, most people tend to placate her and let her get her way. And me as her father, I'm like, no, you can't do that. We're not doing
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
this. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
when she has her episodes and she's yelling and uncontrollable, I'm like, I'm not talking to you now. When you
Mm-hmm.
calm down, then we can have a conversation. But we're not going to do this. And
But Reggie, to your point though, it's taking you time and being a caregiver to get to that point.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
To
yeah,
come to a
it's
point
hard.
where this is how I have to respond to this behavior. If you haven't experienced it or been in a caregiver situation, you may not know to respond like that, if what I'm
Okay.
saying. So
And
I'm not
and,
going to
and
deal
to
with it while you're in this mode.
and to that point, you also have to give yourself some grace when you lose your control, because that's
Oh
Mhm.
wow.
happened to me too.
Yes.
I mean, 'cause
Yes,
we're only
indeed.
human. Let's
Right.
face it, we're only human, and we can only take so much. Even though we understand and we know, sometimes our emotions get in the way too. So
Mhm.
Oh, that's very much so true. You know, I
yeah.
have cried and cried and cried because I feel like I have done something that could have been avoided, or maybe if I had
Mm.
reacted differently. Maybe if I just let them wear that coat instead of this coat, because it'll be something so small like that. Like,
Yeah.
you
Well,
know, what coat you gonna wear to school today? You know, it's
to
so
your
small.
point, Artesia, I don't know. She was born up north, and I swear she was a country girl because she doesn't ever want to wear socks and shoes.
Yeah, that's
Closest
true.
she was is sandals. And even
Yeah.
in sub-zero weather, she would rather put on sandals.
No, no
And
sandals. Yeah.
obviously I can't let her do that. And that's some of
No.
the biggest confrontations. I get told all the time. First off, I get told you're fired. I was fired twice today. And you can't tell me what to do. And it's
I hear you.
stuff like that. And so I understand. I totally
Yes.
understand. So, Vicky, I wanted
It's
to ask you, if and when Ashton does come home to live with you, have you thought about how are you going to deal with all of the medical appointments, doctor's appointments that he has? Because I know that's one of the things I ended up having to deal with. I never knew how my wife dealt with all of that. She just did it, you know, and she was able to schedule things on her day off. But when I was working, I had to take some time off to
yeah.
to do that. And I was blessed and I was able to do that. But in your situation, I'm not sure what your situation is like.
Well, for me, I know that we have what's called FMLA, with this
Mhm.
Family Medical Leave Act. So prior to mine, he was only in Nashville for a year. So prior to him going, that's how I was ultimately getting things done. I would either be able to leave work, take him to his appointments, and then he would spend time with his grandmother here. But to your point, I have really thought about it a lot, because my mom, who's 71, who lives here, has told me straight up and down, I love Ashton to death, but I can't do it anymore. They've
Mm.
had so many physical altercations, so many times
Wow.
when she's had to chase him down the street or restrain him and try to drive. She says, I love you both. She even retired from her job at the Internal Revenue Service to take care of Ashton. But because of
Wow.
so many rough events, she's told me, she said, Mom, she said, Vicki, I love you, but your mom is not going to be able to do this anymore. And I respect it. So with that being said, that's a huge challenge. And one of the reasons probably why Ashton is not at home today, because it's literally my mom, the dog, and Ashton. Okay. So Jules in school, with her being at school, she's working. A lot of times she doesn't come home. So we just kind of omit her from that scenario. But as far as if he came home, it would just be me and him. And I'm not saying she would do small things, but the major things as far as taking him to his appointments, taking him to therapy, make sure he gets to school. If he acts up in school, going to see about why he acted up. She would carry that burden for me so that I could work. And mindful too, I have some health issues as well. So it would be difficult for me to kind of wrangle everything, right? But I've given it some thought now. So the only thought that I can think of is, of course, my kids, mine. I'm going to do whatever it takes is to have that FMLA in place and just try to keep a tight structure, tight routine when it comes to Ashton. You know, we're going to do this, this, and this. And then, you know, these are going to be our exception days where we may change it up a bit, something of that nature. Now, it sounds great to say it out loud, but is that going to plan or going to actually come to fruition? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm prepared to do whatever it takes. I mean, I think ultimately the best bet is to move to Nashville. And I say that because I have some male cousins. He'll still have his uncle. He'll still have his cousins. He'll still have his grandmother. He'll still have, you know, I have some additional family that lives there too. So ultimately, that's what I'm thinking will happen versus him coming here. If we can, you know, ride this out till my lease is up, then I'm more than likely will try to move to Nashville, transfer my
Yeah.
job to
It sounds like
Nashville.
all your support is in Nashville.
I mean, mom's here. You know, I would never
Right.
leave, right? But when it comes down to being able to take care of Ashton and give him exactly what he needs, I may have to. And chances are, if I go, she's coming to. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
I can't speak for her because she's set in her ways. But as far as that's what I'm thinking too. I mean, I think that would make it things a lot easier, a lot
So
easier.
let me just go back to when we first started. I just want to clarify. So you said that when we first started that you guys thought about institutionalizing. What changed your mind on that?
Okay, so this is gonna sound silly, but I prayed about it. Excuse me, guys. Excuse me. I prayed about it and I watch a lot of movies, a lot of
Right.
documentaries, right? So continuously praying about it. I watched this movie about some kids that had behavioral problems. So they were basically taken from their home in the middle of the night, took to this institution that's supposed to correct their behavior, right?
Well, that sounds like
And
reform school.
yeah, something to that effect, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
in the movie, they were basically, I don't want to say brainwashed, that may not be the best set of words. They were making these kids feel inadequate. There were no love there. They would restrict their visits from with their parents. They would just basically treat them like little ATM machines. And I was
Correct.
worried that that would be the experience that Ashton would have. Now, I've researched the facility, visited the facility, of course, from the outside looking in, even talking with some of the people that work there, all rosy. But I fear that because 70% of the time, Ashton is a very loving child. He doesn't have any
Right.
problems. He's okay with having a conversation with people who he knows. We can watch movies, we can go play, we can do all that good stuff. It's the other 30% that becomes problematic. And I would hate for it to be a situation that I end up in jail or hell because I find out they're doing something to my son,
Yeah.
locking him
Yeah.
up or, you know, restraining him or anything. So that's one of the reasons. But after what happened with his dad, that's all I could think about. Like, there's no way. My mom saying she can't do it. I can't necessarily do it because it was never me who would forcibly hit him or put my hands on him. And I know it was out of anger. It started with love and it ended up with anger because Ashton was still on the attack. So one of the reasons was just that there's no love in those places. I just
Yeah.
feel like it's very institutionalized. It's almost like
Yeah.
going to prison, you
Yeah.
know? So that's why I stayed away from it. I
Let me
decided,
ask you this. Have you looked into it? There's a program here in Tennessee, and I teach as part of it called Blue Care Plus, which uh, helps provide a caregiver, when you can't do it. Like when I was working, we had a caregiver that would pick her up from her camp and bring her home, or take her to her place and bring her home when I got home from work. They also have other programs where they take the participants out into the community and expose them to the community to do different things, whatever. And so, have you looked into any program like that?
No, I mean, when he was here before they closed, Transformations offered a lot of different things. That was an autistic place in Bartlett where they would teach not only the children but the parents as well. So I was getting therapy there. But I've never heard of Blue Care Plus, but I am taking note of it so that I can research it because that sounds great. That sounds like something that he would need and that could help him a lot. I mean, some of the things the school does too, as well as try to take them on visits to different places to teach them how to interact in the regular world, or the real world, I should say. But as far as having that on a consistent basis, that'll help him. That'll help him a
Yeah,
lot.
well, I was just thinking, because I know you have to work and it'll be hard to get him from school or
Oh,
wherever
yeah.
if you bring him here
Hmm.
and someone watch him until you got home, along
Right.
those lines. So that's why I thought about that. And the other thing is that, when do you get some respite? When do you take a break?
Yeah,
And because
Good.
Marlon and I have already been there, and we
Yeah.
know at some point in time we had to step away
yeah,
Oh,
just for
absolutely.
peace of mind.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just get a
Yeah.
break for a minute.
Absolutely.
That's
I
what I
don't do
think.
enough of that. Maybe so now since I came out of, I don't want to say depression, but the funk that I was in right after,
Yeah,
his passing, right after the change up with him going back. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to be able to get out of the house a little bit, mingle with other people, do different things because I'm
right.
very sociable. But this type of situation will have you not wanting to go anywhere. I mean, it
Oh
will
yeah,
literally
yeah,
have
oh yeah.
you focus on the kids. And that's one of the reasons why, like I said, guys, I have some health issues myself. And it was getting to the point with dealing with Ashton. That was my health, his health, that was my world. I was missing tons of
Hmm.
work. When I was able to work, it was always a fear: are the school going to call today? Or is the doctor's office going to, am I going to have a good day?
Hmm.
Those type of things. But now that things have kind of calmed down a bit, I know that I have to take the time for myself,
Yeah.
definitely. But it's hard because the kids are all I can think about, especially Ashton now because of his dad's passing away. So I haven't really slowed down and gave it much thought. A little bit, I'm trying to date, I'm trying to get out of the house more, but it's short lived because I
Yeah.
know if Ashton came back today, I would be right back to where I started. My main focus is
So
on him.
yeah. So let me ask you, so does Ashton understand the passing of his father?
He was told that his dad died in his sleep, because
Okay.
I felt like, and his grandmother felt like as well, that if we told him the true
What I mean, what
reason,
good is it going to do to tell him that?
right,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly,
yeah.
exactly. Now, this is my fear though. My fear is that some of the family talks loosely around Ashton. They don't
Mm.
realize that autism doesn't make you deaf. You still hear very well.
Oh
You're
yeah.
not
Um,
dumb either.
and
Yeah.
your
Very smart. A teacher's
processing
very
is just
smart.
exactly. So I even had to learn when Ashton was younger to stop talking about him in front of him, or talk to him versus at him.
Right.
So I'm sure he may have heard the real reason because people are talking around him, not really realizing that he fully understands
Oh
what's going
yeah.
on. But again, we haven't discussed it, him and I. He's talked to me about missing his dad, being sad about his dad, even the altercation with the fight. He was more shamed than anything. So it let me know
Mm.
that it was because I FaceTimed him. When his uncle told me that I FaceTime Ash, and he was still in Nashville, I was here, and I saw this massive black eye. I tried not to make a big to do about it. I was just like, oh, wow, and he was looking extremely sad, like he was about to cry. I said, it's
Hmm.
okay. It'll heal. Everything will be fine. I was calling to check on you. I see you. He was in a store at the time.
Uh-huh.
So I see you in the store. We'll talk about it later. But we never went into detail
Mm.
about what happened, about why it happened, or how we can prevent it from happening again. Never.
Hmm.
So that's one thing I would like to address with him. He just shuts down when that comes about. He doesn't even
Wow.
act like you telling him to, well, make sure you be on your best behavior. No cutting up today. If you feel like you're upset, talk to the teacher, talk to someone. his response, I don't understand why you always ask me to talk to someone when I'm having a bad day, like it's a big deal. So that lets me know maybe he doesn't fully understand, the repercussions. And, part of me wanted to say, well, maybe I should have told him the real truth. But then at the same time, what good would that do him? That wouldn't do him
Yeah,
any.
yeah. I was going to make 2 points. So have you had the services for him yet?
Yes,
Okay, so
yes. This was
that's going
September.
on. So I'll
Yes.
tell you a situation. So my brother passed away while my mother was in my care, and I say that there's 7 phases of dementia. So she was in probably phase 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
So he passed away, and it was difficult for me not to tell him. So, I talked to my pastor, I talked to her doctors and nurses. So the question they just asked me, they said, Marlon, what good is it going to do for you to tell her that?
Right.
Because you don't know how it's going to process it. So I took the kind of position like everything that I could do for my mom, in her last days here, I'm going to do everything that's in my control, in my power.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one thing that I could control that I wasn't going to do was tell her about my brother and then just have them rationalize it in a dementia mind, knowing that they don't process stuff the same. So what is she
Right.
going to do later and worry about it all day or
Yeah.
think that she could do something? So I made the decision not to tell her, and it was difficult,
Oh, yeah. I
because
bet.
she passed away not knowing, but now they're both together in heaven. You know what I'm
There you
saying?
go.
So,
There you go.
yes, but that's my point that I share with anybody. What's going to be the benefit of
Mm-hmm.
telling them if the outcome is the same? And as we discussed here, you can tell them in a way where the point is conveyed, but it's not in a situation where they're going to feel adversarial or
Right.
saddened or something anymore. So yeah,
That's true.
yeah,
I
yeah.
totally agree with you there. I guess I wanted to use, well, not necessarily use it, but I wanted him to understand that this is not the right way to go as far as violence, because this is what could happen, but at the same time, this is dead. We're not talking about somebody else outside of the immediate family. So I definitely don't want to hurt him. I definitely don't want him to carry that guilt around, or to carry that burden around. His dad loved him very much, and he was very much so active in his life. I just feel like he was overwhelmed. I mean, I've been overwhelmed. We've all been overwhelmed when it came to Ashton, but I definitely just think he was extremely overwhelmed with no outlet, because he was looked to be the man, to be the fixer. He had Ashton had all these problems with me when he was here and he was younger, between 4 and 10, or 4 and 14, excuse me. And then when he went to Nashville, his dad was supposed to kind of rectify that problem. And for a while, he would say, well, Ashton doesn't have any episodes with me. We have no problem. He's perfectly fine,
Really?
And I found that hard to believe. I really found it hard to believe. I believe that he would try to downplay it. Maybe it wouldn't be so extreme. Maybe he would do that pacifying effect. Well, if you do this, I'll do that type of situation.
Right.
Because Ashton would cut up religiously with the so
I
knew that
or he
wasn't the
would
case.
placate Ashton and give it into him whatever he wants to do.
That's what was
When you
happening,
just
right?
said that, I kind of was like, really? I don't think so, because that doesn't
Right.
change their behavior.
No, definitely not. And the same
Wow.
thing is happening now, as far as I asked his grandmother. I was like, so, and now mind you, this happened in September. I was there quite a bit in October. November, not so much, because I'm trying to get back to work and get back in the groove of things with the job. So not so much this month, but I plan on being there more frequently next month. So I asked her, I said, so has there been any episodes? Has there been any major meltdowns, any problem? No, he's been fine. And I just know that's not the case. I just know that's not the case. And that's another reason why it's problematic, because we have to have open dialogue, not because I'm going to immediately go to Nashville and pack up the Durango, but because I just want to know what's going on with my son, because nothing's worse than someone asks you what happened. I don't know what happened, but this is your son. Well, I don't know what happened.
Let me ask you this. Have you had that conversation with your mother-in-law? Look, I understand how Ashton is. So when you tell me he's not cutting up at all, I know that can't be true. I just need the honest truth from you, and we can deal with it, and we
Trust
can
me, I
work
can take
on
it.
rectifying it. Have you had that conversation with her?
I haven't, and I feel like it's a struggle. I don't want to disrespect her. I definitely don't. I don't want her to feel like she's not capable. of doing this, but be mindful this is what you asked for, not what I volunteered you for. I didn't come to her and say, well, hey, can you keep Ashton? She asked me straight up and down, could he stay with her? So I need to. I do. I just haven't found the right words to say because I know better. I know better. I know that that's not the case. He's been upset about something. I mean,
Yeah.
what flavor cereal he
Yeah.
had?
Well, let me ask you
He's
this.
had something.
Let me approach it this way. What
Mhm.
support do you have in dealing with all of this? Not just Ashton, but with uh, you know,
In-laws, the whole kit and caboodle.
in-laws, the husband, the death, the whole 9 yards. What support do you have?
Um, I'm going to therapy. I've been in therapy for quite a while. I was in therapy before this happened. So therapy has been supportive, but not, I feel like it's working, but it's slow motion. It's not like
Oh yeah.
having a real someone that you have a support system with. I mean, of course, you and I have been able to grow as friends because of that support system, having someone who understands. And you have been the first someone I met that understood. And that's sad because
Well, you
Ash
know
is
what?
14 years old.
Thank you. That's what we are all about, trying
Exactly.
to
Exactly.
convey situations.
I think
And
it's
I'm really
working.
glad you said you made my day. I don't even have to have
Well,
a drink after
good.
this meeting now because of what you just said. Well, but on the other hand, I think I will have one. Thank you.
Yeah,
That was from the
the good
heart and
stuff.
profound.
No,
That's exactly
seriously.
what we're trying to do.
I
Vicki,
think it's an amazing thing to do because when Ashton was here with me, I didn't know where to go because people would it's so different, many different levels on the spectrum. So they would either make it be the worst situation or, oh, he's not that bad. Well, he's bad when he wants to be, so it's there's kind of no understanding there. So it was rough. It was really
right.
rough. The
Well,
doctor's telling you textbook versions, and just to have someone that truly understands what's going on, I hadn't really had that until now.
well,
So
let me ask you this, because I'm just thinking about things as they come to me.
mhm.
Um, you said you're in counseling. Have you talked with your counselor about how to deal with your mother-in-law in this situation? Asking her what's going on with Ashton and not getting the honest to God truth.
Or
Right,
or
I had,
or or or, or transparency.
Oh
You
yeah.
just need
yeah,
transparency is all you
So
want. You're asking
that's
for.
all
you
I
have
want.
asked the counselor, or you haven't asked the
I,
counselor.
I have asked the counselor. We've talked about it. She said something similar. Just, be open with her, be honest. You may want to have a face-to-face conversation with her versus over the phone or text.
Right, right.
She also said that, show her that you're not on the attack, that you're not
Yeah,
asking to be able to, oh, see, I knew it. You can't do it. I'm going to come snatch Ashton,
yeah,
so
No,
give her
yeah,
that peace
yeah.
of mind.
it's more like, and I say this because neither Marlon and I are counselors. We're just lay people talking, and it's more like you're Ashton's mother. You know your child, so you know
Yeah.
Absolutely.
something isn't quite right. And the
Right.
same way she knew her, I used to. I think I told Marlon this before. I used to wonder how in the world did my mom know? Her back was to me, and she knew I was doing something. You,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you
Mhm.
know? And that's the same
That's a
thing you're
mother's
going.
intuition,
No,
Mother's
I know my child.
intuition. That's right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely right.
But to your point about conversating with her, my grandmother and I, when she was alive, she used to tell me, we used to have conversations. She would always say, "You're a man, you could just tell me anything in the way you feel." I was like,
Mhm.
"Nanny, that's true. But you're just not somebody that I don't know.
Right.
You're my grandmother. So I
Right.
have to choose my words so that you understand what I'm saying, but
Mhm.
you don't take it disrespectfully."
Right.
So you're right, but I have to just choose what I want to say so that you'll understand my meaning without
Mhm.
you taking it the wrong way. That said,
Right.
with your in-laws, you know, it could be easily interpreted from them that, oh, you saying I'm not doing a good job. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that I'm preparing for the future. God forbid something happen to you, me, whatever. We just need to be transparent. So if something's going on, I know it. And if I know something, I'll share it with you. So
Excuse me
you
one
just
second.
don't
I'm
have to
sorry,
draw the
guys. One
line.
moment.